In the spotlight tonight, a constitutional amendment in Mississippi seeks to amend the state Bill of Rights to declare a fertilized human egg as a legal person.
Amendment 26 is a scientific and moral issue, not a political one. Science confirms that a person is a human being at the moment of fertilization. It's a moral issue because it doesn't matter if you come from a family that's rich or poor, black or white, or even if your father was a rapist.
If Initiative 26 passes on November 8th, effectively changing the definition of person could make abortion, birth control, and even in vitro fertilization a crime. The unclear language of the amendment leaves it up to the state legislature to hash out the details of important questions surrounding pregnancy and government, such as investigating women who have miscarried. Even local Democrats, including the party's candidate for governor, Johnny Dupree, support personhood. In an interview with Salon, Dupree voiced concerns over the impact on birth control and rape victims, but said, "I'm answering the question and voting on the question based on what was asked in the initiative. That initiative says, where do you believe life begins? I believe life begins at conception." Personhood USA, the group behind the Personhood Amendment in Mississippi, is also helping the push for initiatives in several other states, including Florida and Ohio. Joining me now is Erin Carmon, staff writer for Salon.com, who wrote a first-hand account of the amendment during her travels to Mississippi. Erin, thank you for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having me.
So this is a campaign that they've started in Mississippi. Is this their first ballot initiative before they move off into other states?
They've been on the ballot twice in Colorado. They failed wildly. However, we know that Mississippi and Colorado have very different demographics. This is probably the first state where it could pass.
And you found that there are Democrats in California, in Mississippi, who are not standing in the way of this, and in fact, openly willing to vote for it, support it.
Well, the pro-personhood people have managed to make this about abortion, which in Mississippi is overwhelmingly opposed. So you have these Democrats who say that even though they think that there are serious problems with the amendment, for example, there are no exceptions for rape and incest victims, it seriously could stand in the way of caring for a woman if her life is at risk. Even though they have all of these doubts about it, they're supporting it because they say, as the Johnny Dupree that was from the debate, he said, this is about life at conception. They've reframed it that way. And there is one person in the entire state of Mississippi, one elected official, a Democrat, who stood out against it, who said, this is about controlling women, and I'm a woman who doesn't like to be controlled.
Now, this is clearly violates Roe versus Wade, so they know what they're trying to set up here, if it passes, is simply a vehicle that will get this delivered to the United States Supreme Court.
Right. Well, traditionally, the pro-life movement has opposed personhood amendments because they actually think that they're too crazy. And that I'm serious. They think that they're going to get Roe reaffirmed because they've overreached. But you have all of these people who increasingly find personhood an appealing message because they say, we've been going incremental and there have been 53 million abortions since Roe v. Wade. Well, guess what? This probably would never be enforced. The one thing that is sure is that if it's passed, Mississippi, which has an extremely high poverty rate and a high teen pregnancy rate, a high infant mortality rate, is going to be locked in legislation defending this, maybe all the way up to the Supreme Court, but whatever it is, it's going to cost a lot of money.
Explain quickly before how this invades the process of in vitro fertilization, and then also possibly what could it have to do with miscarriages?
Well, if they think that a fertilized egg is the same as a person, that means, in the process of in vitro fertilization, they create more embryos than are necessarily going to implant.
They fertilize more eggs than they're going to use.
Right. Right. So they may end up, the medical definition of pregnancy is when an embryo implants is when a fertilized egg plants inside the uterus. We all know a woman can have a fertilized egg. It doesn't implant naturally. In vitro fertilization, they're going to need to create more fertilized eggs than are ever going to cause a pregnancy. Personhood people think that freezing embryos is murder because 50% of them may not survive, and they think discarding embryos is murder. So they want to implant one fertilized egg at a time, which would drastically reduce the pregnancy rate. As for miscarriages, if a miscarriage looks suspicious, if it looks like it was due to child negligence, negligence of the mother, maybe she had a glass of alcohol, whatever it is, maybe she talked about not wanting to be pregnant, all of a sudden, in states where they have
homicide investigation.
Yeah, states that have absolute.
Erin Carmon of Salon, thank you very much for joining me tonight.
Thank you so much, Lawrence.